Ooh. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ms. TV Total Football. Huge news that has dropped over the past 24 hours. Daniel Levy, the chairman of Spurs, Tottenham Hotspurs, he's gone. He's departed. He's been let go of. Whatever you want to say, sacked. I don't know. They're saying that they've just separated away, but ultimately he's probably been told to move on. Look, in one side, you're thinking, man, are Spurs about to turn a corner? Are they about to get serious? I mean, look at the kind of business that they did over the summer window, bringing in Thomas Frank, very good manager. Obviously, still got to prove at the highest level, but still very, very good manager. They've brought in Kudus, they've brought in Kolomoani, they've brought in Xavi Simons. There's quite a lot of nice group of players that they've brought in, and it's something you really don't associate with, Spurs in at least the last probably 5, 6, 7 years. You'd have to say, and his departure, it seems like maybe there's a shift, maybe the taste of winning a trophy last season, the Europa League, which was a massive achievement for Spurs. I don't know, did the owners, the majority shareholders, we'll get to all of that news, the Lewis family, did they start having a feel that, you know what, yeah, I like the taste of that success, I like the taste of silverware, and maybe they heard the fans. The fans are delighted. The Spurs fans are so delighted that Daniel Levy is going, or is gone already, and they feel that the tide is changing. Maybe someone's going to come in, and the focus will be on winning trophies, which is crazy. Spurs have never been about winning trophies. Now, look, that's one side of the story, that there could be optimism, and this is how the Spurs fans are looking at it. But do you know what? I want to explore. I want to give you my perspective on it. I'm not a Spurs fan, but I want to provide something of a different perspective, where how do people perceive Spurs from the outside, right? And we're going to go through a whole heap of different articles in relation to this. Obviously, Tottenham Hotspurs, they announced it, I think, sort of in the afternoon yesterday. Tottenham Hotspur announced departure of executive chairman Daniel Levy. So he's gone. See you later. And as I said, a lot of the Spurs fans are very, very delighted. I just want to say, from my perspective, from as much as I can recall, going back, he's been in the job for 25 years, Daniel Levy. But as far as I can remember, Spurs really weren't that relevant up until, I'd say, around late 2009, 10s, that period when they finally broke through. They started to become a Champions League team on a regular basis. I still remember Gareth Bale, that match against Inter Milan. I don't know why that match sticks out, because Gareth Bale absolutely smoked Maicon, I remember. And it was that from then onwards, they started to play Champions League on a regular basis. And it was during his time. Prior to that, Spurs were very irrelevant. I still remember Spurs having managers such as Juan de Ramos, Martin Yol, and this, that, the other. Like, as I said, I'm not a Spurs fan, and I know if some of the Spurs fans watching this might say, "Hey, no, those managers were, they were significant for Spurs." I don't know, you comment below, but I used to remember, as much as I can recall, Spurs didn't do anything in the Premier League. Really, they didn't do anything. Yeah, they were one of the top clubs, but they barely ever put a dent on the Premier League. They barely did anything. They never made it into Champions League up until right in that period that I said, 2009, 10 onwards. And then eventually Spurs made it to the Champions League final. The likes of Harry Kane, Son, this, that, the other. They had a stellar team, and they were starting to be serious. And then, obviously, if you guys remember that season when Leicester won, Spurs were definitely in for a shout for winning the Premier League, if it wasn't for us right at the end, the Battle of the Bridge match, if you guys remember. So that fine period that Spurs have had was also under Daniel Levy as well. Now, it might have got to a point where, off the back of the success that they had last season, not in the Premier League, because they finished what, 17th, something like that, something ridiculous. But the fact that they won the Europa League, maybe that has triggered something of the ownership, and they feel that, you know, Spurs make a lot of money, ladies and gentlemen. They make a lot of money. Under Daniel Levy, once again, the new stadium, the new training facilities, and that stadium absolutely mints money. Spurs are one of the wealthiest clubs. They keep their wages low. They've got their revenues very high. And the stadium doesn't just accommodate for football, it accommodates for concerts, it accommodates for many other things, and it brings in huge level of income. And maybe the owners are starting to feel that, you know what, maybe it's time to win something. And this is the crazy part. This is the crazy part. Like, do Spurs, in their DNA, which is, they won the Europa League after like 17 years drought of anything significant. I think prior to that, it was a Carabao Cup that they might have won. They generally don't win anything. So is this a shift? Do you know what I mean? Is the DNA going to change? Breaking: Daniel Levy has stepped down as Spurs chairman. There's some really nice information here. I want to go through with you guys. Check this out. Daniel Levy stepping down closes the book on one of football's biggest money ball stories. It's true. As I said, they used to be irrelevant, and then they became relevant. And then over the last few seasons, it seems like they've sort of fallen back into that irrelevancy period, but they're starting to bounce back again. Obviously winning the Europa League and, doing what the kind of business that they've done in the summer window this season, and trying to, do something about this season. They're going to be in the Champions League. Maybe they're trying to get back into those, sort of the top echelon days again. When he took over, Daniel Levy, Spurs were valued at around £80 million. I think he took over about 2001. £80 million. You get a top player, somewhat of a top player now these days, with £80 million. Back then, Spurs were worth about 80 million. He took over when they were valued at 80 million. Today, they're worth 3.3 billion, with revenues topping 550 million a year. You have to say, Daniel Levy, from a business standpoint, he's put Spurs in the global map. He really has. As much as the fans, they couldn't care less about the business. They want to get the best players. They want to compete for trophies, this, that, the other. Some of these Spurs fans need to remember and realize, not that long ago, you weren't relevant. And these figures are saying that. Now Spurs have become a 3.3 billion worth business, turning over 550 million a year. Incredible. All while keeping wages at just 42% of the revenue. And this is where Spurs are doing an absolute killing. Only 42% of the revenue is going to wages of this entire football club. And the other remaining is just, obviously they've got other expenses, but this is how Spurs are making so much money. And we didn't get to the footballing side, the business side. Yeah, it looks amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like they make a hell of a lot of money. But from a footballing point of view, that money is not translating, all of that profit, all of the business is not translating into success. And I think this is where they've come to a decision with Daniel Levy that, you know what, Daniel Levy, you've done a fantastic job when it comes to the economic side of things, the finance side of things. But now I think Spurs are looking to kick on and do some damage with all the money that they've earned. In Football Manager terms, he built Spurs into a Champions League regular and gave them one of the best stadiums in the world, which is true, all without the sugar daddy budget, the ultimate long-term save. It really has been. It really has been. Transformed the football club. However, now the football club wants to move on to the next level. Check this out from The Athletic. Daniel Levy was removed as Tottenham Hotspur chairman following an ownership-instigated review. A club statement said Levy had stepped down, but the decision was taken by the club's majority shareholders, the Lewis family, making a seismic change in how Tottenham is run. And I think this is what it comes down to, the Lewis family. As I said, I'm not someone who is in the know of every bits and piece of Spurs, but they are the majority shareholders and they've made a decision. And, the decision is that they want to start winning trophies. Whether they win it or not, we shall see. And how they go about who the next, chairman or sporting director, whoever it is, and whatnot, or are they looking to sell? Maybe they're looking to sell the club to Arab owners. Who knows? Change in relationship between Levy and Lewis family. Focus of family instigator review was team's poor performance, and it has been for the past few seasons. One of the reasons why they've lost some of the big names. Harry Kane has left, right? Spurs finished 8th a couple of seasons back. Last season, 17th. And they've not been doing well. Desire for more wins more often. Surprise among prospective buyers. So, yeah, we shall see. We shall see what happens. Whether Spurs, they go on and sell. Yeah, it's a lucrative club, man, at 3.3 billion, and it's in a very, very lucrative area as well. I remember the last time I went to London, last time I was in UK, 2015, end of 2015. Yeah, man, that part of London is obviously Fulham Road is amazing, of course, like that's a very lucrative part, but that Spurs area, the Tottenham area, yeah, there's a lot of wealthy people over there. At the start of the year, the Lewis family decided to take a serious look into one of the thorniest questions at Spurs, the question on the lips of so many fans: why is the team performing so badly? Incredible. I want to go through. Look at this from Tom. This is very, very good Chelsea fan, Tom Overin. Daniel Levy turned Tottenham into an elite club off the pitch and got them spinning record match day revenues. That's facts, absolute truth. This came at the expense of on-field success for many years. But if the next CEO converts the revenue into ambition on transfer market, Spurs could become serious. They have to be very careful. Like, yes, you've got the money, you can be ambitious, but there's got to be a balance. You can't be reckless. Like you see at times, Chelsea Football Club in previous times under Roman, as much as we love Roman and we won so many trophies, right? Love the fact how he led us, but we were reckless at times. We gave crazy amount of wages, and sometimes these players don't work out, and then we're stuck with these crazy wages. One thing Spurs that they don't want to do, yeah, okay, you're going to move on, maybe bring in a new CEO who's a lot more ambitious. You've got to be careful as to how many of these big-time players you're bringing in with, high transfer fee and high wages as well. If they don't turn out to be good, that is going to quickly put you back into trouble. But I guess for Spurs, it's a bit different because the amount of money that they make on a regular basis, year in, year out, the revenues that seems to stream through, and I think it's only going to get more and more. Maybe they might be okay to, take hits, financial hits, because it's not really going to affect them. I want to show you guys this video to close things off. I think this is a really, really good one. Let me just bring out the sound and let's all listen in on it. Let me just do that again. Bear with me 1 second. There you go. We'll just put that down there. Let's bring that up like this. Actually, we'll do it like that, yeah. All right, let's listen in on Jermaine Jenas, once a Spurs player. This is what he had to say about Daniel Levy's departure from Spurs. I think he's made some very, very interesting points.
Wow, so big news coming out of Tottenham Hotspur this evening. Daniel Levy's decided to step down as chairman of the football club. I'm pretty sure the initial feelings from the fans is going to be one of delight. I don't think it's any secret they've been trying to get him out of the football club for many years now. I just hope that once the dust settles and people have a moment of reflection, that there'll be a level of appreciation there for what he's achieved. I think that you're always going to want more, better players, more trophies, challenging for things on a year-on-year basis, and I think those things can be thrown at Daniel. That's definitely where he fell short. But the reality is, I think he joined the club in 2001. you know, I was at Newcastle 2002-03 season. I remember looking at that Spurs side, and it was an aging side. It was a side that with mid-table, ambition probably wasn't there. A lot of good players there, but there was, you know, a lot of work to do. And I think I looked from afar at that point, whilst I was at Newcastle, and could see what Tottenham were doing in terms of the good young English players that they were bringing to the table. And then, yeah, when the call came in to join Tottenham, you know, I remember the conversations I had with Daniel, and they were all around, you know, ambitious thoughts. You know, he wanted to build a team that was going to challenge for the Champions League. And he did that in terms of qualification of Champions League, that is. You know, we were the team that crossed that threshold. You know, we got that done, and his ambitions didn't stop there. I think, you know, going on to build that incredible training facility, the incredible stadium, shows where his mind was at. And look, you know, when it comes to business and football, you're never going to get the balance right. You know, fans are always going to want more, and he's the one that's in the boardroom making the decisions for what he feels is the best thing for Tottenham. You know, and there's no doubt in my mind that he definitely hit the brakes at the worst times. You know, I think about that Pochettino team in particular, the one that challenged for a league, the one that got to a Champions League final, and how he wasn't able to manage that. You got the Jose situation. There's plenty of lows.
That is a huge point. You know, the fact that Pochettino era, I think they really could have capitalized a lot more, and Daniel Levy definitely missed an opportunity to do that. You know, that's when they really should have attacked the market, and really, because at that time, for some reason, other Premier League teams were a little bit topsy-turvy as well, and that was the really big scope for Spurs to do well. So now everything Janine Jones has been saying so far has been absolutely spot on.
In there, you know, that people are going to be, you know, we'll bring up and we'll talk about. You know, but the reality is he leaves the club in a better position than where he picked it up from. You know, his last bit of business that we're looking at now, bringing in Thomas Frank, a very good transfer window to that as well. And now we're looking at a team that I suppose most Spurs fans feel like they can do something, they can go on and achieve something. There's a lot of positive thoughts around the club at the minute, and I think that, you know, I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. And I suppose if there is a way to go out, it is, you know, delivering a European trophy, and yeah, and going out probably on a high. You know, like I said, wow.
100%, absolutely agree with what Jermaine Jenner said. And I think this is where there has to be a balance. I think we need to realize, and as I keep repeating, I'm not a Spurs fan, but at least from afar, I can see what Daniel Levy did for Spurs, man. And I think the best way is what Tom put out there, Tom over, and the post that he put out. I think that was the most perfect way to sum up the situation. There was a lot of good that Daniel Levy did, but I think it might have come to a position where, you know, change was needed. The finances were are looking good, and now maybe it's time for them to focus on trophies. Let's see what the future holds. It's very, very interesting times coming up for Spurs, how they move in the next transfer window, who they bring in, so on and so forth. Yeah. Is this going to be a problem down the track? Is this going to be a problem for the rest of the Premier League teams? Let me know your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, in the comment section. Are you worried that this has happened? You know, under Levy, it looked like, yeah, Spursy. Do you know what I mean? Bottle jobs. This is what they've always been named and bantered about. But now, without Levy, yeah, are you worried? Comment below, smash up the like button if you're here for the first time, subscribe, hit the bell notification to stay in touch with all my content. Till next time, take care. See ya.